Well, I should preface this by saying that an optimist, a dreamer, and a firm believer that with the right kind of passion and the right kind of dedication, anything is possible. And I like to think that we'll be the kind of students that maybe in a way save music or change music or innovate or create or go different directions with music and find new paths to bring audiences to listen to what they're doing. And we do this by encouraging as much versatility as possible, and we explore working very hard towards memorization, excellent fundamentals, sight reading skills, playing jazz, playing lots of chamber music, lots of solo playing, and trying to get the students as versatile as possible so they're ready for anything that they might encounter musically down the road. Many of them are very interested in careers playing in orchestras, but if a student believes that the only job that will make them happy is playing principal trombone in the New York Philharmonic, there's only 2 or 3 people every 100 years that have that opportunity, and so I try to encourage them to be prepared for anything and to just love making music.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Versatility, flexibility. My first trombone teacher, John Swallow, he talked all the time about being prepared to do anything and everything. He was playing and premiering all these great solos. He was playing with the New York Brass Quintet. He was playing in the New York City Ballet Orchestra. And that's what we want to create as options in school. We want to take advantage of all the education we can learn. Even at Texas Tech, learning a lot about recording. My colleague, Will Strider, has turned into a master recording engineer, and he uses his time and expertise to apprentice a lot of great recording engineers. We have a computer lab with one of my other colleagues, and they do work on music technology, learning about and getting into more of music history. That's another important thing. We just had a guest a few weeks ago who told me about what he's in the music world today. He has to, on certain shows, play bass trombone, tuba, and sometimes even euphonium, all in the same show. Stress the business aspect of music. Learn how to become your own boss, how to become an entrepreneur. Be prepared for any kind of performance situation, but maybe try and cultivate your own performance situations. For instance, what about write your own music and compose your own type of show? What about writing arrangements for an entertainer, maybe including yourself in the mix? Organizational skills are so important as well, too. Those are things that I just try to stress in students as well, too. Be flexible, give yourself a chance, jump right into a situation. Find an opportunity that may not be as familiar, but just because of your musical talent, you might figure out a way to make it work, and it might open up a completely different door and completely different doors for you that you never expected. When you see how life evolves, something will tell you what your next step's going to be or how you want to repackage yourself so that you can create and fulfill a dream later in life you'll see will bring you a lot of contentment and happiness and peace of mind.
Thank you.
So first and foremost, as
Yeah.
a professor, I think the most important thing that you can do is to expose your students to the broadest variety of things as possible, to give them the broadest worldview. So not only so that they're great trombonists who can excel in any variety of performance opportunities, but they can also articulate who they are as artists, where their role is in the society, and where society is going, where it's been. It's very important to be aware of all of these things in order to be a contributing member of society and to be a relevant artist. Being able to have fluency and literacy in any number of genres is very important, as is having a strong, broad liberal arts education, being exposed to the diversity of
of anything, really. Diversity of people, diversity of experiences, diversity of economies, diversity of anything. So in a nutshell, I think it's my job to expose my students to the world as much as possible, and to also instill an entrepreneurial spirit and a zest for life, and for being an artist and being a teacher, and for being a good citizen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great question.
To make it as a player takes a combination of skill, which you must develop, luck, which can be partially fostered by your connections and how well you work with people, a broad perspective about music, studying, just being musically curious about everything. In America, I would say if you're going to make it as a player, you need to be as well-rounded as you can possibly be. You need to play all styles of music. You need to play jazz, you need to play salsa, you need to have a command of all of that, because all of that will help your income. Also realize that it's a daily journey, and you have to get up every day and say, what do I need to do today, and just do it.
Foster a sense of independence, that I don't put all the steps in front of them. If I assign a piece, I say, okay, you have to choose the next piece. Here's a stack of CDs. Here's a list of artists. Go listen to some singers. Here's some music in the practice rooms. I try to get them focused on each other more than they're focused on me, so that when they leave here, there's not a attention gap, an attention deficit. That I have a pet phrase, and it's called higher education. I want every performance to be like you're auditioning. Bring your best to everything. Don't wait until you leave here to be the professional. One project that we've undertaken is to have a living resume, not just a resume that you create at the moment that you apply for a job, but a resume that actually reflects week to week the things that you have done, no matter how significant. Keep this resume in one document as many pages as you need, and when you apply for a job, you make a duplicate of this document and you delete the things that don't apply.
First of all, I think probably, realistically speaking, not everybody's going to play in an orchestra. I think it's valuable. Those are valuable skills to have. We need to know the repertoire. It's part of who we are as trombone players and our history as trombone players. But there's a lot of things that we can do as musicians. We can teach, we can play in all different styles. We can play chamber music, we can play pop music, we can play rock music. There's all different kinds of things we can do. So I prefer to give my students kind of multiple styles. And hopefully something that is meaningful to them personally and reflects their own interest and attraction to music, and something that really reflects what they can offer the world.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's unique, and hopefully that's outside of the box and gets more people involved in listening to and attending concerts and purchasing CDs and supporting live music. So I think in order to do that, students need a lot of musical entrepreneurship skills. They need to know how to promote themselves, and how to talk to people, arrange things when it's needed, get musicians lined up, network with people, make contacts, create something where there isn't something already there, because our opportunities are not always just falling out of the sky anymore. So we got to sort of make our own way a lot of the time. So I think it's important for students to have skills in interpersonal kinds of things, in business, and how to put something together that no one's done before. And outside of that, I think they really just need an incredible love for music, and teachers are responsible for making sure that they experience that in college, at the college level or at any level, because that's what will carry them through all of the difficult times. And we know that musicians have a lot of difficult challenges.
Thank you.
We also use in the U.S., we can use the military bands, especially the permanent duty bands in D.C. are a really good way to make a living with a lot of opportunities. But more and more I'm trying to get my students to have a really well-rounded view of what everything they're going to have to do, from teaching to all kinds of playing, to chamber groups. Brass quintet especially can be a moneymaker for brass players and horn players. Of course, orchestral experience. My career path led me through 5 years of freelancing in Boston. Shows are big potential for income, so in any way that people can get experience playing Broadway style shows, more commercial recording playing. I was lucky enough in Boston to do a little work with the Berkeley Jazz Orchestra, which for a horn player is great. That's the problem, is to create new players that are much more well-rounded and able to do a variety of things. One of the things that comes up in horn too is high horn and low horn. That's got to be an antiquated concept that just can't be anymore. You don't have that freedom in where you're getting employed. And then the last thing I want to mention is freelancing rules of how to conduct yourself on a job, when you move into town, things to do, things not to do, because we don't really teach that in college. And it can be a very devastating thing to learn when you're trying to make your living playing. And I've been trying to bring in more people who freelance for a living. I think that's one of the more viable career paths. Now, it's always been a great career, but I think more and more people are forced to cobble together a living playing, doing so many things, freelancing. So one of the things we really don't teach are etiquette rules for showing up on a job. Many of the things that suit you well in college are absolutely against the rules as a freelancer, or even as a beginning first year, second year orchestral player. Really silly things like show up a half an hour early. Especially if you're a freelancer, the contractor just doesn't want to be nervous. Silly common sense things like thank the contractor. There's other sort of unwritten rules. Don't practice excerpts in public. Don't go through your full warm-up when you show up. Make sure you're ready to go when you get there. Don't ask questions. If you don't need to talk to the conductor, well, probably better said, you don't need to talk to the conductor. And if you're not playing principal, you don't need to talk at all. And if you are playing principal, it's probably better, if you really have a question, if you can save it where you don't have to take anyone else's time except for maybe a quick conversation with the music director. If you're working in the section, don't play louder than the principal. There's nothing to prove. And some of that stuff may work just fine in college, but many of those people around you have been playing those jobs for years, and it's not pleasant for them. Thanking people, just being easy to work with, that part of your personality that you show on the job, people are easily as much concerned with your personality and how pleasant you are as you're playing. And so when somebody says to you, I don't know if the pitch is correct there, always just say, okay, I will fix it. The goal of a musician needs to be, how do we make the best working situation conducive to the best performance? You gotta just lose your ego when you walk in there. Just be quiet and be as helpful as possible. And those rules are tough to come by if you don't know them, because many times if you break a rule, you won't really hear anything. You just won't get hired. We say you just can't talk about people on the job. It's like your mom's old rule. If you don't have anything good to say, just don't say anything. Compliments are always good, but leave it at that. You're not going to help anybody, by yourself included, by speaking ill of any of your colleagues. And really, if everybody abides by those rules, it's a very pleasant thing to work, to be able to freelance and see different people all the time and feel like they're interested in sitting down next to you, and you get all these different ideas and different playing styles. It's great. My time in Boston, when I was freelancing full-time, was really one of the most rewarding playing times in my career, and it was great. And we need to take care of our students and give them that information.
Thank you.
Well, the first thing I like to do is I like to talk with them and ask them what they want to do. I think diversification is a good idea. I want to be the principal trombonist in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Well, there hasn't been a vacancy there for about 40 years. So that's a long wait to work. So then if you say, well, I want to be a trombone player, well, then your odds improve. I played in an orchestra, but I also taught here, and the person that sat next to me for 26 years was a band director, but a very good trombonist. So he did some income stacking, we played some shows, we played some jobs, we played in the orchestra, and he taught. And so we didn't get to do all of what we wanted to do, but we got to do a lot of what we wanted to do, and we were always around musicians. If you can play classical trombone, they will call you for classical jobs. If you can play classical trombone and jazz trombones, they will call you for classical and jazz. Mm-hmm. If you're a trombone player and a conductor, then your opportunities to be actively involved in music, grow exponentially.
Number one, I think for a lot of our students, it's about being responsible. Hard work is important. I really emphasize that they work hard and they commit themselves to what they do, and to treat people well. The music world is very small, and the more you're in it, the smaller it gets. So treating people right is one of my biggest things for my students. Again, the biggest thing is to plan well, be polite to others, treat other people well, and to work hard.
I like my students to go to concerts. I like them to interact with musicians who are out working. I feel it's important for me to bring guest artists like you, Abby, here, that they can pick your brain a little bit and find out what your experiences have been. I really want them to understand that the burden of becoming a proficient musician is something that rests on their shoulders and not mine. I'll help. I want to help. I'm here to help. But I can't do that for them. I have a couple of students who start to get it, and that's really neat. And so when one of those students does well with one of these competitions, like the ITA competition, that's a very big deal because they did it themselves. If they get that spark of motivation and self-reliance, their musical values and the way they play will serve them well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The preparation is about to learn the difference between being creative and recreative. And I think traditionally we teach music over and over and over again, and we keep recreating something that's already happened. And I think the key is to get our students thinking creatively. If they're playing a piece that's been performed 10,000 times, how can they make it sound fresh and new and spontaneous? So I think it's about discovering the true creative spirit in each of us. I think these days it's very important that we foster a spirit of improvisation in everything that we do, and a spirit of entrepreneurship, and to explore that word and what it means. Musicians have to be creative in creating things that will give them work and give them meaning. But I'm an optimist, and I think that creative people and people who have the right tools will find a way to have meaning and to develop and share their art with the world and have satisfaction and joy in the process.
Thank you.